Monitoring and Oversight Delivery, who will also be making a presentation. I'm not going to waste time. I'm going to ask the Minister of Basic Education to please come through so that she can take us through today's briefing. Thank you, Minister.
Good morning, and thank you very much, Program Director. Let me acknowledge my colleague, the Deputy Minister, DG, Dr. Polio, DDG, Gear, and senior officials from the department, but most importantly, the members of the media. And thank you very much for honoring us with your presence. Indeed, Program Director, we really hold this media briefing in times of trouble, not only very cold, but it really happens on the back of a disturbing incidents of looting and burning down of buildings and vehicles. And as a sector, we're not even spared. Our young democracy has been tested to the limit, but on the other hand, as South Africans, we have demonstrated what a great nation we are. The South Africans from different walks of life came forward to lend a hand towards the healing, rebuilding, and renewal. And as a nation, we should continue to express our appreciation and gratitude to all those South Africans who continue to work towards these noble goals and reject violence with the contempt it deserves. We should refuse to be divided as a nation along racial and ethnic lines, and where things have happened, we should work together and work for healing and nation building in this beautiful country of ours. And unfortunately, this unrest happened in the month of July, which we all pride or cherish as the Mandela Month. And I think in his name, let us all ensure that never again we witness these barbaric events recently in our country, and rather in his name work for peace, work for unity, and for our country's well-being and its people. So this briefing, Program Director, we're going to look at the readiness for schools reopening, which will be led by DDG Geya. Also, we will touch on our readiness for a full return of primary school learners, because it's our other new challenge. Update the nation on the sector vaccination. Also reflect on the vandalism of our schools in Gauteng and the Western and KZN. We'll just update you briefly on the shift of the ECD program from basic education to from social development to basic education. We have recently finalized work around the May-June supplementary exams, and will be announcing somewhere 24th of August. Is that not so, Dr. Polio? 24th of August learners will be receiving their results. And just also make announcements on the school calendar for 2023, not 2022. 2023, and it's very helpful for people to be aware when we make these publications, because we do want them to comment so that parents don't discover in January that schools are opening on this day or not on this day. So we have published the 2023 school calendar, and we'll also be making a brief announcement around the school nutrition program. But first and foremost, I really want to take this opportunity to thank the staff and the leadership of the Department of Health, from national to provincial department, with the work that they really did with us on vaccination. We also want to extend our appreciation for the professional services we received from health from the start to the end. We also want to express our gratitude and appreciation to our teacher unions, organized labor in the sector, and also our school governing bodies, including the different NGOs and entities that work with government. Our teacher organizations helped us with advocacy, with vaccination education to its members, and leading from the front. Their support and assistance as unions contributed enormously towards the success of this program. For that, I want to wish them most sincerely. But also want to thank, as I say, our entities that were there. Just the vaccination program for us was very important as a sector, just to try and get the sector back on track one way or the other. It was based on the analysis by Professor Martin Gustafsson from DBE, using the information that we have on PESA. They report that between March 2020 and February 2022, we lost almost 1,678 educators. And that's a very modest a number that we're citing. But it does show that as a sector, we were under extreme difficulties. We can report we've lost as a sector an MEC, we lost a head of department, we lost the president of one of our teacher unions, and lost quite a number of senior staff within provincial and national departments. Just last week, we were burying a couple from a doctor from a department who passed away with his wife. So it's really been a very devastating impact on us. So we can report that when we spoke to the public last time, we said we had made a request of 582,000 jabs from the Department of Health, and can report that we have spent 517,000 of those jabs, which gives us an 89% vaccination success rate. Reports on outstanding members who have not come forward, they include reasons like the vaccination site was far from where I was. Some were not very sure about the hesitance about the vaccination. There was vaccination hesitance in some instances. Some people preferred this vaccination jab over the other. They didn't want the J&J, they wanted Pfizer, for instance. Some had just been tested. I mean, we had more than 30,000 teachers who had tested positive for COVID-19. As a result, they couldn't be vaccinated. Some cited medical and religious reasons. But what is encouraging me is the fact that we continue to receive requests for assistance from some of our teachers who were initially hesitant. We're now coming forward to ask for help. And we still hope that these educators will come forward. And because we have closed the vaccination for education, but they are in the system, they can join the general population vaccination program, which is underway. On the reopening of schools, as a sector, we have held countless consultative sessions to deliberate on the reopening of schools. And depending on the President's confirmation tomorrow, when he has his family meetings with fellow South Africans, and after Cabinet, we want to report that as a sector, we are ready. The last time the announcement was made was that schools will be reopened on the 26th, and that's why we're working towards the 26th. But again, the President will confirm tomorrow. What we will do, I've asked DDG Geyer to give a full report about our readiness for the schools reopening, what instruments and tools we're using to be able to determine our state of readiness. The Director General himself continues to convene one-on-one meetings with heads of provincial education departments to ensure that there is continuous sharing of experiences and working together. And as I said, DDG for Provincial Delivery and Oversight Unit, Ms. Simone Geyer will make a presentation just now to give more details on the matter. In 2020, the President did announce a 100 billion stimulus package, amongst other things, which was meant for job creation. As part of the Presidential Employment Stimulus Program, to address the devastating impact of COVID-19 on our sector, on the economy, but also on general social infrastructure, DBE and its provinces were allocated 7 billion. 2.4 billion was used towards the saving of posts for those schools that are independent, but also for posts to save posts which were meant for your school governing body teachers, because most parents, with the impact of COVID, find it difficult to pay fees. As a result, schools were struggling. just from that 2.4 billion, we're able to save more than 33,549 posts. The remaining amount of money, which is about 5 billion, was used to employ almost 320,000 young people as teacher assistants, but also as general workers. And these young people assisted the sector in addressing challenges in schools arising from the COVID-19 outbreak. They supported teachers with in-classroom remedial work, focusing in particular on learning gaps in the sector, and also helping with advocacy and education for vaccination. So it did create, I mean, I think most members of the media will be aware that COVID-19 measures forced us to have a differentiated timetable, and they did help us in closing the gaps and helping us to claw back on some of the priorities, ramping up on the reading and numeracy programs which we had underway, helping us continue with the work on coding and robotics and many other activities, including a conducive environment in compliance with COVID-19 protocols. And we do believe that indeed, after Treasury has finalized whatever it's really working on, they'll be able to assist us in getting these young people back again into the system. On our side, we're very ready. I thought the program director should also express our deep concern about what happened to our schools in recent weeks during the unrest in KwaZulu-Natal and Gauteng, where education centers and institutions were vandalized and looted. I received a list from the MEC of KZN of about 137 schools which were vandalized. We had 3 education centers which were vandalized and 8 circuit offices which were also affected. This is a really unprecedented, and we are concerned as a sector that much needed school infrastructure was damaged, and it is a serious setback as the sector is already under extreme pressure in terms of appropriate infrastructure for schooling. The province has made, I've been speaking to the MEC even from up to late yesterday, they're making all the necessary arrangements to ensure that all these schools do open on Monday, the 26th of July, and that teaching and learning continues. In Gauteng, more than 43 schools were vandalized from the beginning of the year, but during this period, only 11 cases were reported. 29 of the schools that were vandalized from the beginning of the year have been repaired out of the 43. And the province is also working hard to make sure that even the schools that were affected in Gauteng, the learners are able to go to school. In the main, from the reports that I received from the provinces, both Gauteng and KZN, our ablutions blocks were vandalized, plumbing equipment removed, water supplies destroyed, even including stealing water tanks that were put in schools. There was some schools had their electrical wires ripped off, copper cables stolen, school fences ripped off, certain libraries alight with textbooks and stationery, and in the main, our ICT centers and nutritional centers and admin blocks were the target. Though we have not finalized the cost of this damage, our estimates that we worked on in a meeting convened by the Deputy Minister on Friday, the estimations exceeded 300 million of damages that we've suffered as a sector. Because in face of such major attacks, we need to stand together in condemning the destruction of public and private property. We wish to thank all the partners who have joined the department in conveying this message, calling for the protection of schools. And as a sector, we've agreed with MECs to embark on an integrated campaign to involve school governing bodies, law enforcement agencies, our teacher unions, parents, and civil society to ensure that we take a strong position to love and protect our schools. In necessary amongst the many strategies we've agreed as CEM was to mobilize our learners, as I said, and all the other people to help us really safeguard our schools. Our priority, which we agreed on in CM, was to embark on executive roadshows, paying special attention to identify hotspots and to normalize learning environments once schools open. As I say, difficult as it is for KZN with 137 structures attacked, and the MEC tells me that they have serious structural damages which, if we use them as they are, could pose serious dangers to learners, and therefore they have to find other means of making sure that school does continue despite all these setbacks. I did report that I will also just give an update on early childhood development function shift. On the 30th of June 2021, His Excellency the President of the Republic of South Africa, Mr. Cyril Ramaphosa, signed the national proclamation to effect the early childhood development function shift from the Department of Social Development to the Department of Basic Education. The signed proclamation was gazetted on the same day, and it is a critical milestone in the function shift process, which will enable DBE and Department of Social Development to start the planning process to ensure that the function shift is effected, and it will be effective from the 1st of April 2022. In the coming months, DBE and the Department of Social Development will continue with their planning and preparations for this shift. This year, different branches from the Department of Education are also preparing for the delivery of this functioning into the sector. We're also working with civil society, coordinated by one of our partners, independent partners outside government, the NECT, to make sure that, again, we are able to have an integrated program working with those ECD centers which are outside the span of government. We are working very hard with the Department of Social Development to ensure that there's no interruption to service delivery through this transition process. As departments, we see this as a significant opportunity to improve access to quality early learning and to ensure and to enhance the ECD delivery system to better serve the children of our country. Again, Chair, I did say that we will just touch also on the fact that we have just completed our supplementary exams, which started in May this year and June. These supplementary exams are a second examination opportunity that is offered to candidates who wrote the November 2020 examinations, and also it's also an examination for adults who want to sit for matric. And this year's supplementary exams were very important in view of the fact that we had a number of challenges with the 2020 matric exams. Some of the learners could not present themselves, but our performance had dropped. Therefore, we felt it was important to give some of our 2020 learners a second chance to write their exams. So the writing of this exam started on the 26th of May, and it was concluded on the 7th of July. We had 249,851 candidates that enrolled. 711 of these candidates were for the National Senior Certificate, and 140,140 of these candidates were senior certificate candidates. We made sure, despite the fact that we were on level 4, that we follow COVID-19 protocols to the latter. And we can announce that a total of 772,000 scripts were marked by almost 9,223 teachers in the 54 centers. As I indicated before, the standardization is going to happen on the 6th of August, and on the 24th of August this year, learners will get their results. The other points that I really wanted to announce was the fact that we have gazetted our proposed 2023 school calendar. It has been published on all DBE platforms. It is a staggered calendar, one for coastal provinces and another for inland provinces. Because if members of the public will recall, we tried to test if we could have one day for schools opening and one day for inland and coastal. Parents and committees came back to say they prefer staggered timetable, where inland schools open on a certain day and then coastal schools open on a certain day. And they cited reasons like movement, transport. If they've gone on holiday, they would really want to find time to really move in between provinces. So we've gone back to the staggered timetable, and that's why we're drawing your attention to it. We also wanted to make an announcement that we continue to put in place plans to continue feeding to learners not yet in school, because as I said, this week it will still be staggered. We hope to start phasing in your primary school from the 2nd of August, but some high school learners who are not covered by the full return to school would still really be on a rotational timetable. So plans are in place to continue providing feeding to learners not yet in school, using different options, including staggered feeding at schools, cooked food collected at school, food parcels collected at schools, as well as parcels at collection points other than schools, that provinces will really work out and say what is the best method. We continue to call on our parents and members of the community to support the learners who benefit from the nutrition program to get their meals, whether they are back in school or not. And learners not attending can approach the nearest school to collect their meals or food parcels. As a sector, we have a lot of work to do, but we really do believe with the support of the communities, the NGOs and civil society working with us, we are up to the task as South Africans, not only as a sector, because we really rely on support outside ourselves. And we believe that it will get better if all our partners and stakeholders continue to support us the way they have been doing. So I want to thank you very much, Program Director, and invite DDG Geya to really give an update about the readiness to return to school on Monday. Thank you very much.
Good morning to everyone. I will do this presentation, which is quite a lengthy one, and I'll ask if you just bear with me around the details as I go through. The presentation covers the areas that Minister has covered in her report. So we talk to readiness in terms of the non-pharmaceutical interventions, and we just list what that is. It is about social distancing, the provision of water to ensure regular washing of hands, ensuring effective and efficient screening, ensuring that there is sufficient airflow in the classrooms, ensuring that the health measures are maintained in special schools and in learner transport. Then we also focus on readiness in terms of the non-negotiables, and these are sanitization and hygiene, and school nutrition program. And then there's an area that focuses on what remains as challenges for provinces, and here in particular we are looking at the provisioning of adequate facilities, as well as we look at the interventions to support the damaged and vandalized schools, as well as readiness in terms of the dashboard indicators, and this we give in the dashboard according to the provinces and their readiness. So the first area then that we focus on is the non-pharmaceutical interventions, and like I said, it is about looking at what the readiness is, and I have already indicated what the areas are. Beside of the social distancing, we have to ensure that there's regular washing of hands and sanitizing. We have to look at proper wearing of face masks. We have to look at cleaning and sanitizing of frequently touched surfaces. that there's effective screening to prevent anyone with COVID-19 symptoms from entering the school premises, isolating those who show COVID-19 symptoms in the schools, and limiting visitors to schools. These NPIs work in conjunction with each other. They are not singly effective, and so we have to ensure that all of them are adhered to and not just work with one of them, and hope that that's going to help us. Then the sector is working towards implementing all the NPIs to ensure that there's no transmission of the virus in the schools. Now, on regular washing of hands, we focus here on just what we have done around ensuring that there is a facility available on the provision of water tanks. So there are three main ways of providing water to schools, and if they don't get water supply from the municipality, it is about the supply of water tanks and then water to fill them. It's about making use of existing boreholes, and it's also about installing new boreholes. So some provinces have used a combination of these mechanisms to ensure that all the schools have a water supply, and some provinces, and we list the provinces, have provided schools with water tanks and have put in systems in place to fill these tanks regularly, whilst other provinces, and again we list them, have service level agreements with municipalities, water boards, and contractors to supply water for the water tanks. Then we move on to looking at the services of existing boreholes and installing new ones. And here we indicate that there are 5 provinces, and we again list the provinces there. In addition to other methods of providing water to schools, they are servicing the existing boreholes. There are 5 provinces, and again they are listed, that have put in place measures to service the existing boreholes, and we indicate what the numbers are there. So 185 boreholes are being serviced, 85 boreholes have already been serviced, and 43 boreholes will be serviced by the 26th of July 2021. The installation of boreholes is generally part of a long-term infrastructure plan. 7 provinces, and we list those 7 provinces, have planned to install the new boreholes. Going on, we look at monitoring to ensure that schools have constant and uninterrupted water supply. And here we talk about 7 provinces that have on-site storage facilities for schools which experience water challenges to address intermittent water supply, and this includes the provision of water tanks and the provision of boreholes. In areas where the municipal supply is not reliable, there are reservoir tanks that have been designed to store water for at least 48 hours. And in other cases, smaller storage facilities are connected to the municipal supply to collect the water during the off-peak period for use of the schools. Now on mask wearing, what we then indicate here is that the health department has recently provided guidelines to us on the lifespan of face masks, and it's 6 months. And so in line with this guidance, all provinces have made funds available to procure new masks. Provinces are at different levels of procurement stages to provide these new masks by the time that all the primary school learners return to the schools for daily attendance in the 3rd terms. In some instances, the provinces have already procured the new masks, and they are centrally stored in warehouses, and they will be distributed from there to the schools. And in other instances, provinces, the procurement process is in an advanced stage and will arrive by the time that the schools open. Some provinces have provided learners already in grade R, 1 and 8 with new masks in February 2021, and so they will just check about how good those are and issue new ones if need be. Then on the monitoring of proper wearing of masks, so provinces have issued out circulars to the school to reinforce the strict compliance with our standard operating procedures. The sector considers the wearing of masks as something that if you do not wear it, it is a serious misconduct. And then monitoring compliance in terms of proper wearing of masks is done at different levels, and this includes principals and other SMT members and teachers doing daily monitoring in the schools. The circuit managers and the district officials do spot checks as they visit schools, and the provincial head officers do regular monitoring on a sample basis with spot checks, and they also have employed monitors to do that. So on other COVID essentials then, we look at the provision of COVID essentials, and the schools in all provinces will have all the COVID-19 essentials when the schools reopen by the third term. These include masks for the learners, educators and non-educators, face shields, hand sanitizers, detergents and soap, disposable gloves, heavy-duty gloves for cleaners. Provinces use different mechanisms to procure the COVID-19 essentials, and I've already indicated that there's either a central procurement and then distribution to the schools, and I indicate here the provinces that have chosen the central procurement option. And then in other instances there's transfer of funds to schools to procure the COVID essentials by the schools, and those provinces are also listed there. Moving on then, now we're looking at monitoring measures to ensure that the schools never run out of the COVID essentials. So provinces here use different mechanisms to ensure that the schools do not run out of the COVID essentials, and these include keeping surplus stock, and we've already indicated that they keep them in warehouses and then send them out to the schools. The principals monitor the stock levels and regularly, and then they place orders when the stock gets low, and they report on any COVID-19 essentials shortages to the respective districts, and those provinces who take that option are listed there. There's a frequent supply, at least twice every term. This is the option that Northern Cape takes. And then employing officials to monitor the COVID essentials in schools, we indicate the province that's taken that option. And then in other instances they use electronic surveys to check whether the stock levels are in order, and we indicate the provinces to do that. Whilst the schools first utilize their norms and standards funding to procure any additional PPEs where needed, and we indicate the province there. Then moving on to effective and efficient screening. So here it's about the provision of infrared thermometers, and to ensure that no learner, staff or any visitors admitted to the school premises with COVID-19 symptoms. So all the schools have already been provided with adequate thermometers according to the size of the learner enrollment. The infrared thermometers are checked regularly to ensure that they are not faulty and that they don't give wrong readings. Dysfunctional or damaged thermometers are returned to the suppliers or they are replaced. And all the provinces have measures to ensure that the infrared thermometers are sufficient and that they are functional at all times. Then ensuring that the screening is done efficiently and effectively. Funding has been made available to provinces to employ enough screeners to ensure that effective screening of all the learners, staff and visitors to the schools are done, and no one is allowed on the school premises that have any symptoms. Efficient screening is to avoid the delays in starting lesson time in the morning. So currently we have 49,741 screeners across provinces that have been appointed to carry out effective and efficient screening. The screeners have been trained on how to screen properly, and we also have refresher programs that have been scheduled. And then additional screeners will be appointed, and they will also be trained. So on the health protocols in special schools, here we are indicating that provinces use a combination of approaches to maintain health protocols, especially where learners are sharing assisted devices in the special schools. They include the following. So it's about eliminating sharing of assisted devices as far as possible. Guidelines were issued to all the special schools on the standard operating procedures, and it was contextualized. A protocol and training program on the cleaning of wheelchairs and assisted devices was provided to special schools for learners with physical disabilities. In schools for the blind, there is regular sanitizing of frequently touched surfaces due to the use of training mobility techniques. And then the schools are encouraged to help the learners with the washing of hands regularly with soap and water before and after using assisted devices, and the devices are sanitized before and after they are used by the learners. On the schools of skill, the protocols here that we are observing is to ensure that measures are put in place that the workshops for the practical work that needs to happen in these schools and subjects include limiting the number of learners per workshop, and that there is a rotational timetable, continuous sanitizing of the machinery and equipment, planning activities to avoid sharing of apparatus, machinery and materials, strict wearing of masks at all times and affording learners regular mask breaks, and keeping the doors and windows open to ensure regular airflow. The health protocols then in terms of learner support. Here we're talking about ensuring that measures are put in place, and a lot of the provinces have already done this, to ensure that whilst learners are transported on the scholar transport, they all observe protocols that would include employing scholar transport monitors, and these monitors ensure that all the learners who enter the scholar transport are complying with the COVID-19 regulations. The learners and the operators have to wear their masks at all times. The learners have to sanitize when they're boarding and when they're disembarking from the vehicles, and the vehicles are cleaned and they're sanitized before and after use. The buses are all fitted with sanitizer dispensers. The training operators have happened about how to disinfect the learner transport vehicles, and the provincial departments of education and the Department of Transport work collaboratively to ensure that all the health protocols are strictly maintained in the scholar transport. Now, in terms of readiness of other non-negotiables, here we're talking to sanitation and hygiene, and the measures are largely around providing ablution facilities. Infrastructure backlog dates back to before the COVID-19 period, and so the sector is not able to address this backlog in the immediate future given the budget cuts in the education budget. But whilst there are challenges in some of the provinces with regards to the ablution facilities, there is some progress that has been made. Provinces have ensured that all the schools have toilet facilities, although these facilities are not adequate in some schools. To address inadequacy, the schools across provinces have been supplied with mobile toilet facilities. Schools are supported to maintain these mobile toilets and to keep them in a good working condition. And in other provinces which we list there, procurement is at an advanced stage to the supply of additional mobile toilet facilities. On school nutrition, the provision of meals are to targeted learners, and in all the provinces, learners who are targeted to benefit from the NSNP receive meals in all the schools. All the provinces ensure that the COVID-19 protocols are adhered to when preparing and serving the food, and all the provinces have put in place measures to prevent the spread of the virus when the learners eat their meals. This includes teachers monitoring the learners to ensure that social distancing is maintained when the learners have their meals inside and outside classrooms, and that schools have been instructed to keep the windows and the doors open to ensure good airflow. So on observing the protocols during the preparation and the serving of food, the provinces use a variety of approaches to ensure the COVID-19 protocols are pertained to in the preparing and the serving of the food, and that all the learners, all these protocols are adhered to when the learners return. And these approaches include providing a budget to ensure that the COVID-19 essentials such as sanitizers, masks and plastic aprons are procured, the training of COVID-19 protocols, which is similar to the training that they received on the food preparation and personal hygiene. Then making and distributing demonstration videos on kitchen safety protocols, monitoring and reminding school handlers to adhere to these health protocols, and there's a health and hygiene committee that makes sure that all the health protocols are adhered to regarding the preparation of food, whilst the orientation of the food handlers on health protocols to make sure that there is no deviation is continuous. Now, when we then look at the last area of this theme, then we're talking to the protocols during feeding time, and here we need to maintain as much physical distance between the learners as possible during feeding time, and provinces encourage that there's staggering feeding times to ease congestion, serving meals outside the classroom whenever the weather permits, serving meals in halls, open spaces and classrooms under the supervision of teachers, using other available personnel to assist during the serving of meals, and then demarcating all seating areas clearly. There are some challenges that remain with the provinces, and this is about school furniture. So we have indicated that some of the backlogs, they precede the COVID-19 period, and provinces have have a backlog that around providing the adequate furniture to the schools. 6 provinces have plans at different procurement levels and stages to make a dent in this long-standing backlog. We list those provinces there. Other provinces, due to the financial constraints, are not able to procure additional furniture, and these provinces are using other creative ways to address the problem, which includes fixing of broken desks, chairs and tables. Then on mobile classes, so here we're giving a breakdown of what happens on the mobile classrooms, and the provinces have also got a backlog to address the overcrowding in the schools. And to ensure that there is social distancing in the classrooms, provinces where financial resources have allowed, they have provided schools with additional mobile classrooms as an interim measure. All the provinces have provided mobile classrooms to schools. The number of mobile classrooms provided to schools are indicated in the next slide that comes. And then the procurement of additional mobile classrooms is at an advanced stage, or they are currently being delivered in Gauteng, KwaZulu-Natal, Limpopo, Northern Cape, North West and Western Cape. Whilst the provinces have made good attempts to provide mobile classrooms, this is an interim measure and it's not cost effective. The best way is still to have construction of brick and mortar classrooms, and that's the long-term solution that we strive towards. And then some provinces are considering using community facilities such as churches to ease the overcrowding in schools, and they are assessing the associated implications of this currently. So here is the breakdown of the number of mobile classrooms. The Eastern Cape is 23 and not 3. The 2 is just misplaced in that column, but that gives you the breakdown of all the mobile classrooms that have already been provided. Then we look at the interventions now to support the damaged and vandalized education institutions. So we focus on KwaZulu-Natal. We are still busy trying to get all the information from Gauteng, although Minister has covered some of the information that we have. But we're just giving a detail here on the impact in KwaZulu-Natal. And the extent of the damage is about the districts that have reported minor and major damages in different schools. Provinces have started a verification process to the province has done a verification process to confirm the extent to which assistance is needed. And then the damages and the losses are experienced in Umlazi, Pinetown, Ugu, King Sechwayo, Umgungun Lovo, Harigwala, Zululand, Utukela, Amajubu, Mzimnyati, Kudi and Imlembe districts. There are 137 institutions that were damaged or looted. 8 are education circuit management centers, which we abbreviate to CMC offices, and 3 are education support centers, and 126 are schools and learning centers. The cost of the damage is still being evaluated, as Minister has indicated, and it's expected that the cost damage report will be completed before the end of July, and this report will then inform the nature of the intervention to address the damage of the infrastructure. So here we just give you a breakdown of the damage of the property and the property losses in the 9 circuits, and we indicate the circuits there and the numbers within each of the circuits, as well as to indicate the nature of the damage of the loss of property, which includes damage to physical property, stolen documents, looting, which is theft of property like fridge, microwaves, ovens, desktops, computers, TV sets, and we indicate in how many CMCs that has occurred. Then the nature of the damage in the schools. Here we give an indication of the damage to the property on 126 schools, and it is located within the following districts as we list them there. And then the nature of the damage in the schools. So here we're looking just at what the damage was. So there is physical damage that has been occurred to the properties. So in this instance, it's about burning of classrooms and administration blocks, breaking of doors and windows, damaging school furniture, damaging fencing, and cutting electrical cables. The looting includes the electronic equipment that was stolen, kitchen resources and equipment that was stolen, school nutritional program equipment and food items, COVID-19 essentials that was stolen, building materials, as well as water tanks and furniture. And then there is a detailed assessment of the extent of the damage and vandalism of each of these 126 schools, as well as a detailed list of the stolen property. And we just give you an indication there that if you lift it up, which of the districts suffered the most loss in terms of classrooms, and that those are probably the most serious of the damage for readiness of schools. The provincial interventions to support the schools. So KwaZulu-Natal province has an intervention to support the schools. They are ready to receive the learners when the schools reopen in the third term. To deal with the burnt classrooms, they have procured 18 mobile classrooms for distribution to the 3 schools affected. The delivery started on Friday, the 23rd of July, and will be completed over the weekend, which is currently now. And to deal with the stolen kitchen equipment, the procurement of 20 stoves to prepare food for the learners are currently underway, and these will be distributed to the schools from the 23rd to the 25th, which by Sunday they will all be sorted out. When the schools reopen, KZN department will then send monitors to check school functionality in the highly affected areas. So what follows now gives you a dashboard, and this dashboard it's a changing dashboard depending on readiness, and this dashboard has got a color code that indicates the extent to which you're either in red or you amber or you green. So there are 14 indicators on the dashboard that we, on a weekly basis, when we meet with the provinces in one-on-one meetings, we determine readiness. There are sets of questions each week that we send to them, and it covers the following themes as listed on the slide here. And so this then determines the extent to which you go from red to green. And over the weeks, we have seen that in instances where they were still in red, as the procurement was delivered in terms of the sanitizing and the ablution blocks were sorted out, and all the other things that we have got listed here have been attended to, they move from red to amber to green, and you'll see the progress now. So that gives you the descriptor in terms of the ratings of how the dashboard is kept, and how we determine what the readiness is. And then the slides that follow are per province. So this is the Eastern Cape, and you can see that the Eastern Cape, if we had to look at it last week, there were still some areas that were red. Those areas have now turned to amber, and a lot of the areas are green, which reflects their readiness. And if you zoom into each of these themes on the dashboard, it covers the list of the themes of the 14 indicators, and then the questions that we are measuring for this week are reflected there. They are not always each week the same, because from each week we have to determine what the gaps are, and we adjust the questions accordingly. So then this is the Free State, and they are green throughout most of, in fact there's no, you don't see any reds or amber here. Gauteng has got the same readiness, they are green. KwaZulu-Natal as well. So this slide on readiness was prepared in the one-on-one meetings, and we did not have all the information at the time on the assessment of the damage to property from the unrest in KwaZulu-Natal at the time that this slide was updated. So the information that we've given you now of KwaZulu-Natal in terms of the damage will be updated onto this dashboard, and it may or may not affect some of the readiness, but because it's not that many schools, to the number they have that's reflected on, that this dashboard gives assessment on, it should still largely be green in most of the areas that we have reflected here. On Limpopo, there's the the slide indicator here. They also have mostly greens with some amber. Same with Mpumalanga. They are mostly green, but there are some ambers there. And the Northern Cape, it's got the same situation, some ambers, but mostly green. Northwest as well, they have got some amber, but mostly green. And lastly, Western Cape is all green. Where there's a grey, that information hasn't been available to us, and as the information becomes available, we then update it. So on the provincial specifics of the state of readiness, the report presents an overall state of readiness, and in the interest of time and the details of the provinces, there's a lot more details that we have, but we can't reflect all of that, but we do have all those details available. The one-on-one meetings are quite rigorous in the information that we get and the follow-through questions that we ask, and so we document all of that, and we write a narrative report as well on all of this, which is available. Thank you very much. That's the end of the presentation.
Thanks so much, DDG. We appreciate the detailed presentation. We also made it available in time. We're aware that it's got a lot of information, and we availed it in time for our colleagues in the media so that they're able to engage with it and extract information that will help them to ask questions. And we hope that is the case. The DG is here, but also the Deputy Minister is here to deal with some of the issues that might arise as the Minister might request them to support her in that regard. We are going to the question session now, and I'm going to check with Ignatius first if we have any questions on the WhatsApp line so that we deal with those, and then we'll come back to the room thereafter. Motshekga, you can put your hand down. We'll come back to you. Let's start with the WhatsApp so that once those questions have been answered, the panel will be able to take notes and be able to address those while the colleagues in the room are able to prepare their questions as well. So Ignatius, over to you.
Thanks, Mr. Motshekga. I'll start with this first question. It's from Sumin Naidi, she's a freelance journalist. Minister, you were considered key in the vaccination of the education sector. Would you advocate once the situation allows and proven safe for children to be vaccinated as they are the future generation of this country? And has the 2021 school calendar been amended, and if so, has it been gazetted? Has the department set a date or started planning for the daily attendance of high school learners? Has anything been trimmed or amended from the curriculum due to the time lost? And I have another question from Cindy Siwashora from the Limerick. Will rotational learning continue for primary school students or learners when classes resume? Has the rotational learning system negatively affected learning outcomes in primary school pupils? Those are only questions for now, Mr. Motshekga.
Okay, great stuff. Thank you so much for that. I'm going to now come back to the room. Motshekga, you've got the microphone. Please go.
Thank you very much, Elijah. Just two things that I wanted to ask. The situation in Phoenix, there have been threats of a shutdown, and I'm sure that has also gotten to this. Have there been any security measures that have been put in place in that particular area to ensure that when Monday happens, you're not caught with your pants down? And the second one, also in the interest of transparency, can you please, this is for you, Elijah, can you please have the detailed provincial breakdown of the state of readiness, because it's difficult to engage with other documents.
All right, that's fine. Let's see another hand.
Morning, Angie here. I just want to find out, we know that the primary school learners are expected back in the classroom for full time from the 2nd of August, but we do know that there are also concerns around space and social distancing, especially because most of our schools are quite full. What is the plan there from the 2nd of August for schools that actually can't have all learners back? Will they still have to do the rotational learning and the online learning? Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. It seems we don't have any more hands in the room.
Linda from Yansei, there's just a new question. Will we see different provincial programs in terms of school building full capacity in August?
Can you please repeat that question? It was not
Will we
clear.
see different provincial programs in terms of school building for full capacity in August?
Okay. I hope they get it, but I think it's covered in one of the questions that have been asked regarding space when schools return from the 2nd of August for all learners at primary school level. Hope, please come help. Thank you.
Off or on? Off or on? No. Take it off. You can off this one. The Deputy Minister will assist me and DG where I've missed some questions. And I see also Dr. Whitley is here. Some of the questions will, I think, best suited to be answered by him. On the question of vaccination of students, as DBE, we have no authority or no role in who gets vaccinated and when. We will support whatever health says. If health says learners have to be vaccinated and parents have consent, because these are young people and will need the parental consent, we'll work on the logistics. Even with health, with teachers, we only worked in terms of mobilizing, providing names, but the whole vaccination program as to who vaccinates when, where, it's not in our hands. But if asked and if advised by because here we're advised by the medical fraternity, I don't think we'll have any difficulties. As I say, it will depend what the Ministerial Advisory Committee says. I'm aware that other countries are already beginning, those that have really dealt with their adults, consider vaccination of young people. Some maybe it should be half a dose. So there's still lots of work also happening around the vaccination of people, and we will learn from them and see what we do as a country. But as I say, it's an area completely out of our span, out of our control. We'll do what we have to do, advised by the Ministerial Advisory Committee. All we know that by law, as a sector, anything that has to do with children, we must get parental consent. And that's what I think we'll be working on. Rotational, that's why I mentioned Dr. Whittle, because we have information from the monitor, I'm not sure it's under your branch or DG, which says we have assessed what has been the impact of COVID on our learning. And it's very devastating, extremely devastating. And that's why we really, really wish we could have our learners back, but we are also conscious and sensitive to the fact that their health and safety also comes first. But the results are very devastating. Just says last year, if I'm not mistaken, we lost almost 60% of the time, 75% of teaching time. But in terms of learning, it's even worse than the time we lost. The impact of learning, the effectiveness, because the differentiated timetable is very disruptive. In some provinces, it's weekly. I'm sure even if you are a worker, you come this week, then you have to stay the whole week not coming, you have to come back the other way. It's extremely disruptive. And we're still for younger learners, for younger children who can supervise themselves in terms of doing homeworks when parents are away at home. And yeah, so we will give you, I hope Digi can share that information. We have it in our monitoring system, but the results were very depressing and very devastating. And that's why we feel if nothing happens drastically, we are going to face a very catastrophic future with a generation that will have lost 2 years of schooling. Which means, I mean, if you have 10 fingers, schooling is supposed to be 12 years. So which means they're going to go with their hands with 2 fingers missing, which is their 2 years. So it's just too much and very dangerous for our future, the future of our country and the future of our children. We have no option to continue with the rotational because we don't have enough teaching space. There are lots of factors. Some schools are very big. I mean, especially high schools. It will present a super spreading event if we have all of them. Some schools have almost 2,000 learners. So the rotational will have to continue the rotational, but we'll wish to really curtail rotational in primary schools, so that we can consolidate and give them the necessary foundation, because if things go wrong there, it's going to be very difficult to recover in later grades. The damage happens in your primary school, and if we can't save that part, then we have a big problem. Around Phoenix, I was speaking to, as I said, I spoke to the MEC around just the readiness to prepare, what are the issues. He did assure me that they are working flat out to make sure that where schools have been vandalized, they can clean. There's structural engineers to check where buildings have been affected, how safe are they, how safe is it to use those buildings, where books have been banned, to see if we can find if there are extra stocks lying in other schools to share with the existing schools, especially in special schools where there's also equipment which we import, and what is going to happen tomorrow. So they're working on it. So on Phoenix, there's also community initiative by the KZN department and all different players. The Department of Police, your religious fraternals are there, the different communities are in a mediation process. So the MEC says that's what they're busy working on, just to make sure that they can bring some calm in Phoenix. And based on that, they will definitely really, I think if over the weekend they will be sure whether Phoenix continues. But their starting point is that schools must go back, schools must go on. But obviously they won't force matters if it's not safe for children to be moved into Phoenix. And the problem is that children stay in Phoenix. I don't know what reason would you give them to say it's unsafe for them to go to schools in their neighborhood. The biggest threat will be children who come from the outside area who study in Phoenix. So the MEC did assure me that they're working on it, but the general agreement is that they want schools to start even in Phoenix, and then they work on the healing process. Whether we'll have different provincial programs, I think that's what DDG Gaya was really reporting on. Different provinces have got different dynamics. Different schools have also got different issues. There are schools that can return all their primary schools without any difficulty. They have enough space. They can use their specialist rooms. They can use their, because for instance, some of the schools have lots of labs, libraries. It's just teaching space, convert them into teaching spaces. So we do expect different programs in different provinces. Some schools and some provinces are already engaging with their priests, with local councillors, to use community halls. Because as I say, our biggest prize is to get primary schools getting daily tuition. That's what we're fighting for. And we'll then look at what is possible under the circumstances, so that we don't breach the health protocols, but we do want primary school kids to come back to school. And different provinces are looking at different measures. As I said, some schools, for instance, Gauteng has been building extra classes through a community initiative just to add blocks of classrooms, which in a way also helps us to deal with overcrowding, which has been our old historical problem. But we will have different problems. Social distancing we, as I say, we're bound, and we also really also appreciate the fact that we have to stick to the health protocols. Some provinces have already experimented around even changing seating arrangements. Remove desks, get chairs. So if people have chairs and they write on their laps, you give them lap desks. As I say, it is good. It's better than getting them to be playing in the streets. At least as long as we can have them at schools. Some provinces are looking at rotation, not in terms of day, in terms of hours, that they come earlier, 7:30, they leave at about 12, and then somewhere, so that they really rotate, having come to school, that they get daily tuition. So there are also different methods, and that's why we gave you that long presentation. So we will indeed endeavor to make sure that you all have access to that report, because it's quite long. It's got templates, and it's also showing us how different provinces have been planning, because we've been working on this matter for almost 3 months on the return. So it's not anything new. We've been working towards it. For instance, if I had my way, we would have brought them back even during second term, before breaking for this. And that's when provinces advised me to say, no, we need time to sort ourselves out. And that's why it was planned for the third term. But if I had it my way, we would have returned them during the second term. So we've been working on it for almost 3 months to find ways of coping within the protocols, but still having primary school children back at school. So DM, I know there's a question I missed from Unaidu as I was writing. So
is the amendment of our calendar.
Okay, so colleagues will help me with the questions that I missed.
Ask again.
So just to answer the question on the 2021 calendar, the issue on the calendar, well, the announcement that the President made that the schools closed earlier and that the opening on the 26th of July have been factored into our directions. So that is there. What we have left to do is to finalize the calendar, the actual school calendar that we publish, and just to align it according to the adjusted dates of the earlier closing, and then we will be able to publish that. We've not gazetted it yet. There are 5 days that we need to recover in the calendar, and we are looking towards how we can do that. We will, after consultation with our stakeholders, then publish the calendar, and we will also look at how we recover the 4 days, the 5 days that were lost. There is a possibility that we can see in how we can structure it, but we need to consult first on that before we can publish it. Thank you very much.
You have to come here.
I wanted to go back to the classroom. Thank you, Minister. Just 3 points. The first one is, I think the date of the return of learners is very clear. Learners are returning tomorrow. On Monday, on the 26th. In the same way as we closed, and in terms of returning all primary school learners, as the Minister explained, the intention is to bring them back in the 3rd term. CEM indicated the 2nd of August, but CEM is going to meet before that happens to assess and evaluate the situation. The Minister has made reference to what the President might be sharing with the nation tomorrow. That's very crucial. Whether it would still be on adjusted level 4, if that is the case, then CEM will have to carefully evaluate the decision of returning all primary school learners. If the president announces a different adjusted level, which I don't know, president might say adjusted level 3 based on the reduction of the infections, slight reduction as we have seen, then CEM might even look at that much more positively. So that's the date of the return of learners. Trimmed curriculum, well, given the fact that we don't have normal schooling, trimmed curriculum will continue. But as the minister warned, in the same way as the impact of the differentiated timetable, the trimmed curriculum provides a short-term solution for long-term problems. And let me give an example. The class of 2021 are grade 11 learners of 2020. They moved on to grade 12 with a trimmed curriculum. And the National Senior Certificate is based on grade 10, 11, and 12, which means their grade 11 curriculum, they still have to cover whilst they do the grade 12 curriculum this year. So that's the impact of the trimmed curriculum. That's the impact of even the differentiated timetabling, as the minister said. So the trimmed curriculum continues until we go back to normal schooling. If we're able to get all primary school learners back, which is what we want to happen, it will get us back to cover the entire curriculum and gradually move away from the trimmed curriculum. Okay, just the last point. The minister addressed the issue of the different school building programs. On Thursday, Minister, we had a meeting with all teacher unions, and each head of the department gave a summary of the state of readiness, which is exactly what Mrs. Kaya shared with the public and the briefing this morning. So in essence, provinces are saying they are ready for receiving learners on Monday. They are also saying they are at different levels of readiness for the return of all primary school learners, given the data that has been shared by Mrs. Kaya. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, DJ. Thank you, Minister. Can we do one last round of questions? We'll start with the WhatsApp line first, and then we come back and conclude with the colleagues in the room. Ignatius?
Yes, Mr. Mshanga. On WhatsApp, we don't have any questions.
Okay, that's great. Thank you so much for assisting us with this. Mshanga?
I don't know if I missed it, but what is the plan in terms of high school learners going back to school full time? What's the delay there? And secondly, I understand we are anticipating another wave sometime later in the year. Do we think that we would have at least made some sort of strides in that content time that you spoke about, Minister? Because you did say we lost over 75%, I think, in the teaching time. Are you hoping that you can, sort of like make it rain now while things are looking like they're getting better? Thank you.
All right. There's one question in the WhatsApp now.
Yes, there's one question, Mr. Mshanga. It's from Christian Duplessis from Network 24. Is it the expectation of the minister that schools will reopen on Monday? And exactly what grades will be returning on Monday?
Yeah. That question was dealt with in both the media statement and the presentation. I'm just going to ask the minister to come conclude with the response to the questions asked in this last round. Thank you, Minister.
Oh, that's all. Motshekga, you're quite right. As I said, you know, we're in a very difficult space. I had hoped that we'll have the primary school kids, because those are the ones who wanted to desperately save because of the foundations, and see how it works, and then get the next phase. And now we're running late. We're only bringing primary schools now in July. I had wanted them to come back around March, April, which we couldn't do because provinces felt they needed space and time to be aligned to the protocols. But everything equal, as soon as we're settled with the primary schools, we'll then interact with the provinces to see if we can really start bringing high schools, because even at that level, there are major problems. As DG is saying, this year's grade 12s only had 40%, 30% of schooling in 2020. Unlike the grade 12s of 2020, they had a full schooling 2019. We got them to open earlier, and we got them to work straight on, so which means they had about 60% recovery opportunities. But these, they've really missed grade 11. And which means this year's grade 11s are in the same position. So as DG is saying, it's really working backwards, and it is a problem also, because a year means a lot. So we are taking one step at a time, but you're quite right. If everything equal, I would really have wanted us that we started with the primary schools in the second term, then now third term we start with high schools, but we'll play it by ear and start preparing the high schools, because we do want them to come back and use other methods of getting them to learn. And that's why we're quite keen on your visual, we're trying radios, but again, our research tells us they're not very effective. Our TV programs, we've invested a lot into TV programs, into radio programs, into supplementary materials, but it's not working that effective. But we're still, with small kids, it's a non-stop, it's just not working. To get them, to get a grade 2 to sit and listen to a radio lesson, it just has proven that it's just not working. Even if we have a TV program, to ask a 7-year-old to tell adults that it's not news time now, it's my program, can I have the TV? It's just not working in certain communities. But you're quite right. If we could, it's to really make hay while the sun shines, but it's sometimes out of our control. On Tuesday is the resumption of schools as we closed. So it's all learners according to the timetable they closed with when we left and when we closed schools. So it's just a normal schooling. So if by Monday, in your old timetable, Mondays was your day, these kids call it a shift, it was your shift. So which means Monday you must come. If your shift was going to start on Tuesday, it means you must come on Tuesday. So they have to return according to the arrangements. And I hope schools will remind kids that schools, as I said, which were doing weekly sessions, if it was your week, then your week starts. The other learners' week will start on the 2nd. It's from the 2nd that we hope in the primary schools, unless there are just serious difficulties in terms of your level 4, it might dictate something different. But what we wish for from the 2nd is to get all primary school kids back to school. And all the other arrangements we've been trying to work on are being worked on. I was fearing or expecting that I'll be asked a question about social distancing, that we are abandoning the 1.5. We working with Ministerial Advisory Committee with the health experts to say, is it possible to reduce from 1.5 perhaps to 1 for young people? The preliminary advice we have is that it is safe, but because we can't take those decisions on our own without approval from the Ministerial Advisory Committee and therefore from health, were not able to implement it. But our research, our investigation, everything else has told us that it's possible. Some schools, for instance, some schools are using screens. That they have screens like we have in shops separating those that can afford. So again, we especially in high schools, we're exploring those. So yeah.
All right, thank you so much, Minister. And all the colleagues, Dr. Whittle, Dr. Polia, Mr. Mweli, Ms. Gaya, the DM, and yeah, Mr. Ngoweni, Mr. Matsaba. I see all of you colleagues. Thank you so much. I'm doing this because it's a Saturday morning. We've never briefed in this manner on a Saturday morning. But thanks so much for the support, and thanks to the colleagues from the media. That's how we come to the end of this media briefing. Thank you.